Hey podcast fans, welcome back to Stories from the River. We've got an exciting new behind the scenes series for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed our previous behind the scenes series. We're really trying to take you back into the everyday life, the everyday heroes we have here at the river. And so I'm excited to talk with Heather Greenwood and Krissy Whitley, two of our exciting, passionate people leaders in our human capital department here at Broad River Retail. And we just concluded our third quarter town hall. We do quarterly town halls, and we really wanted to kind of take you behind the scenes. And so why am I sitting here with Heather and Krissy? Because they were like the main event. They had a lot of the good announcements today on following up from our engagement survey. And so with that, Heather and Krissy, welcome back to the pod.
Thank you.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Now, Heather, how many times have you been on the podcast?
I don't know. My husband might be able to tell you, but I don't know. I've lost count, but I enjoy it every time.
We're gonna have to get you, like at Saturday Night Live, the most popular guest get like a green jacket or something. So let's find out the number because you're up there.
Okay,
you're
I'm just rivaling Manny. So.
Yeah, well, both as host and guest. So you're our most requested repeat guest
well,
back.
Thank
I think.
You. Nice.
So I've heard. And Krissy, welcome back.
Yes, thank you.
Super excited to have you. And you got recently promoted and
announced
today.
Did.
Yeah,
thank
congratulations to Senior Director.
Yes.
Super awesome. And so tell us, why do we do engagement surveys in general? And when did we do one? And what's the process? Heather, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So first and foremost, we do a memory maker engagement survey to hear from our memory makers. It's easy to say you're a people company, and I say this when I interview people all the time, but you actually have to do it. And so it's about the words and the actions. And so we run an engagement survey in the fall, October, and really it's to get a pulse on what's going on from all of our memory makers. How are we doing, whether it be around engagement or wellness, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is a lot of agree, strongly agree, all the way down to open feedback. So they can just tell us how we're doing. And my favorite part about it, when we first started it years ago, I remember talking to you and Manny and saying, we can't do it unless we're going to take action. And so we've been so committed to that action piece where I know that you and Manny and Stacy and the team read through every comment, not just once, but twice, 3 times. I know Stacy's is on his desk and highlighted. And we really talk about what do we do coming from that engagement survey to show our memory makers we're listening.
Yeah, fantastic. And Krissy, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so important to find out, where we can make improvements in the experience for our memory makers, because Broad River is all about, an exceptional experience in human capital. That's actually even our vision, creating that exceptional experience for our memory makers. So what better way to hear from them and then make those changes based on their feedback?
Yeah, you just touched on, that's your human capital vision,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Articulate that for us one more time.
It is to create an exceptional experience for all memory makers.
Love it.
So this pegs right to that.
Yeah, the thing about an engagement survey is we get data, anecdotal, subjective feedback, but also just real data, and it's anonymized, right? But we do get data like how long they've been with us, maybe, so you're grouping by tenure or you're grouping by department, and not to where you could figure out who it was, because we don't want to know that, but where you can kind of group it by are they in the retail team?
Right.
So talk to us kind of how we set it up.
Yeah, so when you take our survey, we do it through our HRIS system, Paycom. It is 100% anonymous, and that's really important as we go through the process. We want to know how you feel and how you really feel. But we start by asking a series of questions like, what department do you work in? And we're asking those questions. So in certain cases, like in retail, what we found is they have a very different specific set of needs, and we were able to take action specifically for that this year. So what department do you work in? How long have you been here? Again, to get a baseline. Are you new and you've been here a year? Have you been here 10 years? That helps us a little bit. And again, not to try and figure out, oh yeah, that was Heather who said that, but to be able to give that feedback. And when we share it with our leadership team, we're able to share Will, his department specifics, or Janet, hers. And I think that's become really powerful for us, how we act on those.
Yeah, and then, it's important to make sure that we have enough people take it.
Yes.
Krissy, how do we do with how many of our memory makers actually say, because I don't know, how long does it take, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Probably
Less.
not even that. Yeah, maybe 10, 15 tops.
Depending on how much input.
The comments.
Yeah.
That's right. What percentage of our population actually took the engagement survey?
Was it in the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah, 83-ish.
Pretty close.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, and I know Gary Ridge has always talked about he loves that data and that high percentage of people who take it. That shows engagement in and of itself.
Yes.
Like I think if companies weren't acting on the data, if they didn't feel like you were acting on it, why am I going to take a survey, right? You'd have a low percentage. So participation rate is really important. That's one thing that we measure ourselves on. And then, like, how much data did we get? Because you said reams and reams. It's a lot of input. Like, how much data do we actually get?
We get about 74 pages, I think the estimate from last time, of just open text feedback. So the actual question answer, pretty easy to spit that back out for you all. But going through the open feedback, and we ask 5 open feedback questions. So each one of those, every answer we print and share those with you all. So within that, I mean, that's data on top of data. It's a long process today, which I wish we could make it faster. But today it's long, but that's why, really processing that data.
And I think I've heard there are ways that we can kind of maybe get some tools to kind of help us speed through the data quicker and maybe even use like AI to kind of, or give us analyses about like what the data says. But how do we break it up? So you said we broke it up by, we kind of did it differently because we heard like 2 distinct kind of types of feedback.
Yeah, so when we first did our engagement survey, coming out of it, we looked at it kind of just in one pile, right? And we had one action council. And then we realized after doing that and not knowing anything, we kind of learned as we went through that, is we really do have 2 very specific different groups here. So there is the enterprise, and then within the enterprise, the retail group. They just work a very different schedule, very different needs. And so this year we separated that out. So what we came to in our conclusions was 2 action councils. One, every department represented in one, enterprise, and then one just retail specific. And so we heard coming out of it, actually surprising, a lot of it was the same. And so we were able to act there, but then we found some nuances that were specific to retail. We were also able to act there.
Okay, so talk to us about like just how the process after you get the data and the council, who volunteers on the council, and what happens with the information?
Yeah, so once we close the survey that day, I close it down in Paycom and we start the data piece. And again, today that's highly manual, so I have a lot of support in what that looks like and helping us kind of comb through that. Then we take our first pass to our executive team. They get a little sneak peek. Then to the leadership team, and we really talk about it and analyze it. And then we put together these action councils, and they are nominated by the leadership team. And on the council, every department is represented with a department selected nominee. And we reach out to them and congratulate them and then allow them the option. They don't have to participate. It is a big time commitment. So they met 4 or 5 times this year. They do some work on the side, and this is in addition to their day jobs. So we want to make sure this is something they want to be a part of. And they all say yes, and they're very honored to be a part of it. And then we share kind of some of the other things like confidentiality in these groups and what that looks like. So we're able to put together 2 councils this year that went through that process beginning in March and ending up in July. And then we bring their kind of results, their initiatives to our executive team. We pitch those and get our approvals.
We care about the experience of our memory makers. And by listening to their feedback, this gives us a way to like, where's the best place to put our focus, right? Because we could get one feedback that says, I want this, but if only 1 out of 800 memory makers are saying that, maybe that's not the greatest thing for the enterprise. So what were the common themes? You had some big announcements today.
We did.
So tell us about how you guys set up you were the main event of the town hall today. So
it's a lot of pressure.
What were we announcing?
So we had 5 major initiatives most of them will launch in 2025, but we've got one coming soon. And those were personal wellness days, tenure rewards. So we're revamping that program for our memory makers. Don't let me forget one now. Mileage reimbursement, parental leave. We're enhancing that program. And then for retail specific, split shift Saturdays. Got them all.
Well, let's take those one at a time. And that's interesting because a couple of those sound like they're for specific audiences, but maybe the feedback was so loud or we were maybe so deficient to really kind of bring it up. We needed to go address those. Okay, so let's personal wellness days. I love wellness. That's a fun topic. Let's talk about personal wellness days.
Yeah, so last year we introduced what we called paid sick time to a smaller group of memory makers. And we gave them 2 days for this year. So with personal wellness days, we are expanding, I guess, the footprint or the population that applies to. So all of our hourly memory makers, and we're bringing in our commission, HFC, that population, who will get 40 hours per week of personal wellness days, which is essentially unplanned sick time, appointments, mental health, all that kind of thing. But with that, we also took a look at our PTO tiers, our current PTO tiers, and made some enhancements there. And we will be expanding and making some changes to all of our PTO tiers for 2025. So that will hit everyone.
That's super exciting. So we hear so much about like work-life balance, work-life harmony. So essentially, let me just kind of teach it back. So what we announced is, hey, we heard you, and everyone in the company is getting expanded time off.
Yes. Yes.
Through this vehicle of personal wellness days. So you don't have to take time off and call it a sick day or get sick and not call it. So you're calling it personal wellness days, and based off of your how long you've been with the company or the department or the role you have, anywhere from like 8 to 40 hours additional, I think. Is that essentially?
That is correct.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Anything you want to add to that one, Heather?
I think this one is a big win for us. I think they all are, but I would say this one is something we've heard. And again, you talk about, there's always kind of large overarching things that bubble to the top, where it's not just one comment, it's, several hundred comments. And so this is one, again, in the spirit of wellness and taking care of one another and connection for our company, is just how do we do better for our memory makers? And I think this one really hits home for me as a parent and a lot of people experiencing life. It's just nice to know you have that flexibility and you have that care from your company.
And that starts when?
January 1st.
Okay, January 1st. And you think that makes us more competitive in the marketplace
Absolutely.
with recruiting and? Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, fantastic. And so then the second one was tenure rewards. What does that mean? We'll have to put that on the screen. Tenure rewards.
Tenure rewards. So today as a company, we recognize, we're a big milestone company, and you've probably heard that before on the podcast. But when it comes to your tenure as a memory maker, we celebrate 2 years with additional PTO, 4 years with additional PTO, and then the 10-year. And so as we've kind of thought about those milestones, and we talk a lot from an experience standpoint, how do you walk alongside somebody throughout their career? And our hope is that career lasts a very, very long time. So what we've announced today is we will now come alongside our memory makers at 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years.
Okay.
And at all of those stops, again, from recognition and engagement and celebration, you are going to get different things to commemorate. So that could be a voucher to our Broad River store. That could be swag, which I've already received several texts about since the town hall.
Everyone loves Broad River swag.
If you knew how many, I literally just left the call, been here with you, text about, can I get the 10-year jacket? The 10-year jacket has not been designed yet.
Yes, you can when you've been here for 10 years.
Yes, they want to retro the jacket. So I'll work on that. But how do we come alongside you today? Some of the things that we've added that we do already is we're a big letter company. And so letters from you and from Manny, celebration videos, cash bonuses. And then the other big one announced today is your employee discount will grow. Starting at 3 years, you would normally get 40%, but it'll go all the way up to 70%.
Wow, 70%.
And so the chat was on fire with that one. So again, just more moments to say thank you, we value you, and again, grow your career year over year. And we celebrate at the 20. I'm sure once we get past 20, we'll talk about the 30, 40, and so on.
Well, yeah, that'd be a good problem to have. Why did this bubble? What about the engagement survey kind of bubbled up to say, let's go after your recognition of your tenure and how long you've been here, and that plus, why did you pull it from 2 years to 1 year? Why is that so important?
Yeah, we really looked at retention and turnover. This was a project the MMX team was already working on before the engagement survey. Because they are already active in milestones, that had been a conversation we had is, we should probably do it more. And so when we look at turnover and when turnover spikes for companies, we found that first year, second year, third year are critically important to you staying. Once you get over that 2 to 3 year mark, your longevity gets better and better over time. Now we read the survey, we also find a lot about mattering. How do I feel valued and appreciated and cared for? And so when we were tying the survey to these actions, how do they peg back to one another? And so we found specifically this helps in that mattering piece and caring and just stopping to say thank you for your year, your 5 years. We see you, we celebrate you, and so this was an easy ad for us.
I love systematizing the recognition of your tenure, and I love pulling it forward to 1 year. Like, hey, you made it to that 1 year cliff. We're going to celebrate that. We got some exciting things because that is a big break point on turnover. And by the way, you announced some really exciting turnover statistics today. I think our turnover was down to 28%.
Yes.
And our retention was up to 80%.
That is correct.
Fantastic results. And this will only, I think, enhance that. And so the tenure rewards goes into effect when?
January 1st.
Okay, January 1st.
And maybe retroing some tenure.
Apparently some tenure jackets. Yesterday, we were together with our HC team, and one of our memory makers shared, how long have you been here now? He was recently converted. And he said, it's almost my year. And just to watch him light up and everybody around him immediately applauded and he was so excited. And so again, I think that year is a really magical milestone for people. That's probably a little bit under-recognized today, but this will really help for the future.
There's probably even more that we can do. Maybe we can put it into like the profile picture, like Memory Maker Sense, in the month or the date, and just kind of memorialize that and let that be a badge of honor.
Yeah,
I love that. Okay, so then we got a little bit more specific. So what the third one, because there's parental leave and there's mileage reimbursement. So not everyone's just driving around, but we had some opportunities there. So I think the third one you said was mileage reimbursement.
Yes. So back in 2022, after the last engagement survey, we increased our mileage rate from 32 cents to 50 cents. So we're just expanding upon that and continuing. Yes. Continuing that growth there. So we now, effective 10/1, so this is the one that hits next week, that mileage reimbursement will go from 50 cents to 60 cents per mile.
Yeah, because wear and tear and inflation and gas is expensive, and so just paying 20% more than we had been on mileage reimbursement that goes a long way. Because we don't want people to lose money driving around.
Right.
It's not a profit center, but we do want to make sure that we kind of take care of them for driving, and so going from 50 cents to 60 cents. Anything more with that one?
Nope, that was the easy one.
Yes.
I think the council really felt, or the feedback I had heard from the council was, we had set this precedent of taking action. So one of the things they wanted to do was take action on prior action. And so that's where they had the conversation. Well, we did this and it made sense back then, but it still makes sense now to continue to kind of grow these programs annually as well.
Okay, fantastic. So now we got one. We love our Broad River babies.
That's right.
And our parents and and growing the family. So what do we do for parental leave?
This is my favorite one. This has been a long time weighing on me as a parent and a mom for our company. And so again, in 2022, we had heard this. And so actually at the time, we didn't offer parental leave. And so we made that change coming out of 2022 survey feedback. And we went to 2 weeks for a primary caregiver and 1 for a secondary. And this year, the council was really passionate about this, and they did a ton of homework. Other companies, other licensees, what are other people doing? And so we are really excited to announce today that our primary caregiver will now get 6 weeks of parental leave, and the secondary 2 weeks. Okay. So that was a big one for us today.
Going from 2 weeks, from 1 week or from 2 weeks?
2 to 6.
To 6.
And 1 to 2.
Going from 2 weeks to 6 weeks.
Yep.
Going from 1 week to 2 weeks on the secondary.
Yes.
And now they could take time off before if they had a new baby, but they would use like FMLA, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this it's a much more affordable way to kind of be with your new child and you can, if you want to stay out longer, like 12 weeks, you could still do that, but then stack it with FMLA, correct? Right. Okay. So then this one goes into effect January.
It's also January 1st.
January 1st. That's 4. That's for the whole enterprise.
Yeah, everyone.
Okay, now there's a 5th one. This one was pretty exciting for a certain audience.
The Retail Specific Action Council, made up of some incredible memory makers in our company, this was their number one ask. And we had read this comment after comment. Prior to this survey, our retail memory makers on a Saturday would work open to close. And so that's a long Saturday. You're away from your family and your weekend plans. And so their ask, for a lot of reasons, burnout and stress, and again, work-life balance, was to work a split shift. So either open the store or close the store, not both. And we heard this one loud and clear. So when we presented this to Stacy, and this was my favorite one to present, he didn't even hesitate. That was the beautiful moment of it all. You get kind of nervous presenting these things. And we said it, and we paused. He's like, yes, approved. And then we do the, are you sure? Should I repeat myself? No, he said absolutely, without a doubt, he wanted to do this. And in fact, we already started it before today because Stacy couldn't wait. So it was one of those like, no, we're gonna start it this weekend. And immediately the feedback that we've received, I had a retail memory maker call me just a few minutes ago, $1 million memory maker, an expert, a sales manager, somebody highly regarded in the company, and just say, thank you. It's already made a difference for her and her family.
Yeah, I've spoken to, like when I speak to $1 Million memory makers, when they cross, because it's crossing season, and they'll always acknowledge, they're like, hey, I didn't think anyone was listening, but thank you for that, changing that split shift. So like if you're on the morning shift or the first shift, what would your hours be?
Right now?
Yeah.
Or pre?
Well, now.
Now you would work 9 to 6.
Okay, and if you're coming in for the closing shift?
12 to close.
And is it like 50-50, or is it based off of each store, how the traffic
Each store will determine, and that's what Stacy and Carl have done a nice job of when they rolled it out, talking to the stores, and what does that look like from a staffing perspective, and how they trade off, and what sales managers look like. But they've done a really nice job navigating that. Again, we've been doing it for about a month now in our retail stores, and all I've heard is positives come out of it.
Yeah, and that's the one that's kind of, you've always done it a certain way. That's the more revolutionary one. But you have to kind of adapt. Even customer shopping behaviors are different. And why be there super early if you don't have to, if you can go get some things done in the morning. And maybe it'll make you like appreciate kind of, you won't get burnt out. You can, hey, if I want to go somewhere on a Saturday night, go to dinner, I can do that. If I want to take care of something on a Saturday morning. And so, and it doesn't hurt business. Like if our guests were all coming in, throughout the hours, but we've looked at traffic as well and aligned it to the business. So these are some fantastic updates. How often do you think a company, or how often should we do an engagement survey? And what happens when we don't do it? What do we do in between?
Yeah, so we do every other year cadence, but we do come every year. So every October we run a survey. It will either be the full engagement survey, which we're talking about today, it's about 32 questions, or it's a pulse survey, which we're getting ready to do, which is 5 questions. And that's really to make sure we're just staying in touch with you. So we've made these changes, we've announced them, we've heard you, and now we're gonna come back and say, now how are we doing? And again, just to create a baseline ultimately, but to always come back and ask the question. Now, future state, that could change, and we could come along quarterly, and a lot of companies do that. But for right now, we do annually, and I'll tell you, based on the amount of feedback and again, the participation, we feel really good with where we are today.
Is there anything else, Krissy, I'll start with you, that you might suggest to other companies going through this process, things to think about before you start an engagement survey, and what advice would you have for companies?
Sure. I think look at your cadence for sure and see what works or what you think will work well for your organization, number one. I think what we've seen where we could really gain some ground, and you mentioned it earlier, is the tools and the technology. I think that's probably where we struggle the most, is gathering all the data after the survey is closed. So make sure, you look that you have appropriate tools, which we're getting through, but we could definitely make it easier on ourselves for sure.
Awesome. And Heather, what about you? Any final suggestions or things for companies listening in and they want to get into an engagement survey? What advice, recommendations would you offer?
You have to take action. You cannot ask people for feedback if you aren't going to do anything with it. I'm a big believer, if you're going to ask people to raise their hand and share their hearts, that you walk away and say, what can we do better? Sometimes feedback is really hard to hear. We all know that, or we've read something before and we say, oh, God, oh, really? But I think it's important for us to take it and to reflect upon it and go through that process to then be able to come back and say, we did hear you. We heard the good, the bad, the ugly, and here's what we're going to do about it. And we can't act on all of it, but we certainly made a dent.
Yeah, I think there's so much to say here, and it's a learning experience to go through it. Some of it is like, gosh, really? Or did they not get that update? Oh, I thought we addressed this, or we have to do better on communicating. And sometimes it's a little bit of discernment. You're not going to make everyone happy all the time, and so you have to kind of. But the stuff that kind of is all coalesced and everyone's saying the same thing, or the general sentiments. Okay, that matters. And I would say don't be afraid to take action. if listening matters, if taking care of your people matter, it might be expensive. Don't worry about that. You might look at this is going to cost. Just, you got to do it, and it'll be well received, and people will recognize that you're listening, that you care, and I think also be aware that you might have different audiences that you have to solve for. If you're in manufacturing, you might have people who are in sales, who are on the road, versus people who are in the plant doing the manufacturing. Like for us, we're in retail. And so it does, like those questions could be different, their experiences could be different. And so you do have to kind of look at the type of company and business you're in. And maybe all of you, your company is, hey, we're all call center. So that's fine. That should be the same experience. And you don't have to break it up. But for us, it just kind of made sense. And we didn't go into that thinking that. Yep. That was what the data told us and how we responded to it. Well, I'm so proud of what we've announced today and the effort. We're so grateful for you two and the leadership of the team. I know Emmeline, give her a shout out. Because she is on parental leave right now.
She is. I would say that this doesn't happen. It's not Krissy and I in the council, like the work they did, and we showcased them today on the town hall. It's real and it's gritty, and they share things that maybe they're scared to raise their hand. And Emmeline led them through it this year. She is on parental leave right now at home, but she just did a beautiful job. It's so nice to be able to say, this is yours, be passionate about it. And she always does that. She lives with the heart of a memory maker and wants to furnish life's best memories. So I wish she could be here today, but I know she'll watch the recording and she'll watch the podcast. So it's a big thank you to her as well.
Absolutely. And to every Action Council member, because I've spoken with some of them and they really take it to heart.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, well, and they'll tell you if it's true feedback or not.
Yes.
If it's real or something we need to, we hear that a lot. That's good. That's good feedback that you want to validate or invalidate, maybe some of the responses. Well, great updates today.
Thank you.
The stars of the town hall. And thank you so much for being a part of our journey here to be an excellent home furnishings retailer. And thanks for all that you guys do. And the vision of human capital one more time.
To create an exceptional experience for all memory makers.
Well, we're well on our way to doing that. Thank you guys so much. Thanks so much for joining us here at Stories from the River. Try to bring you fresh new content. And right now, we're in our behind the scenes series for our company-wide town halls. Join us next time and we'll take you more behind the scenes with some of our town hall presenters. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.